Hey, welcome back. My name is Alexander Krieg. I'm an astrologer and intuitive. Today we're talking all about the solar eclipse in Aries happening on March 29th, as well as Neptune moving into Aries, a once in 13-year event. Some major stuff happening. If you're liking what you're seeing, make sure that you like the video, you subscribe to the channel, you turn on those notifications, and maybe let me know in the comments, maybe your rising sign and how you're feeling with this eclipse energy, with this kind of really intense, kind of crazy astrology of March. So let's go ahead and talk about this energy. So, and of course, we'll be talking about we're going to do an overview of the astrology generally, which I think is really important, as well as a reading for your rising sign. So we'll do that we'll do the reading for the rising sign in the second half of the video. Remember that all of the rising sign forecasts will be timestamped in the chapters on YouTube or in the show notes if you're listening to the audio version. And remember, if you are wanting a personal birth chart reading or a psychic medium reading, you can book with me at my website, dogstaroracle.com. I'd love to work with you. So now that spiel's out of the way, let's talk about the solar eclipse. We've got a lot going on with this energy. This solar eclipse, first of all, eclipses, they're going to be more disruptive, kind of supercharged new or full moons that are really part of a larger eclipse story because eclipses happen in cycles. So we started first having Aries and Libra eclipses in 2023, specifically April to be exact. And that energy really picked up that fall when the North and South node moved into Aries as well. So there's been an ongoing story in the Aries and Libra part of your chart. And remember, just because you don't have maybe planets in Libra or Aries, you have a house that is governed by those signs anyway, even if you have no planets there. Example for me, I'm Scorpio rising. So Aries and Libra are going to be my 6th house of health and work. And Libra is going to be my 12th house of like subconscious things, of mental health, of spiritual health, that kind of thing. So we've been having eclipses in Aries since 2023, and that essentially is talking about, I'm going to just redo this. So we've kind of been experiencing this sort of ongoing eclipse story, experiencing beginnings and endings in the Aries and Libra parts of our chart. This final solar eclipse in Aries is sort of like this grand finale to the story that has been, being told since spring of 2023. And it's sort of like this astrology of March really goes out with a bang. And there could be like an ending with the solar eclipse, but there also could simultaneously be a beginning. And then the very next day, we have Neptune, the planet of inspiration, of dreams, of spirituality, of sort of merging with spirit, as well as delusion and illusion, moving into Aries as well. And whenever Neptune moves into a new sign, this is sort of like the beginning of a new era. So it's sort of like the solar eclipse in Aries is signaling like we're going into this brand new chapter. And, that's for like the next several years, because this is the last eclipse that we're going to have in Aries for a very long time. Neptune arriving into Aries is signaling that we're moving into a new era. And even if we look at the astrology of April 2025, it's like this eclipse kind of signals to me like the beginning of like we're really starting to get our footing. There I think are some beginnings, and we're really starting to kind of move forward a little bit, because when we look at the astrology of April, Venus will station direct, Mercury is going to station direct, and Mars is going to finally get into Leo. March has been this big kind of weird liminal space energy, multiple retrogrades, this feeling of like review, of revising, of not really sure kind of even, where the ground is sometimes. It's kind of like with this eclipse and moving into April, we're really feeling like maybe we're kind of having some beginning. So eclipses, this one is a new moon. It is a solar eclipse, but this also means that the sun is going to be partially blocked out. And eclipses are more disruptive than normal new moons. And like I mentioned, it is part of an ongoing story. This solar eclipse may, indicate that maybe you're finally ready to move on to something new or close something out. This does feel like a closing out time, but it also does feel like let's just fucking go, kind of charging ahead energy. So this eclipse specifically is happening at 9 degrees of Aries on March 29th, 2025, about 5 in the morning. Mountain Time. So here in Denver, sometimes I just like to give the exact time so you all know exactly when it is taking place. However, we're really in this new moon solar eclipse energy, for a few days after it happens, actually. And I would kind of extend, with like a new moon or full moon, a couple days before, a couple days after. With an eclipse, it's orb of influence of or like when you can kind of feel eclipses coming and kind of can see the events of those things playing out in your life. You really want to extend that out to like a week and a half before, a week and a week and a half after. It's like you can kind of feel like the rumblings of eclipses coming before they happen and then for several days after they happen. The interesting thing about this eclipse taking place at 9 degrees of Aries is that is essentially the degree where Venus, the planet of love in relationships, went retrograde, as well as Mercury, that messenger planet, went retrograde near that degree. There's a lot happening in the astrology right now of things taking place near that degree. So with this solar eclipse, perhaps there's like movement forward or a decision being made in the topics of the Aries part of our chart where this eclipse is happening. It's sort of like Venus has been reviewing relationships, worth, where she gets pleasure. Mercury has been sort of reviewing and revising, whatever is going on in your Aries house. For me specifically, Aries is my 6th house of work and health. So I've been kind of looking at like, how do I want to take care of myself? How do I want to work every day? What's my work routine going to be like? So this solar eclipse is sort of like, to me, it feels like the beginnings of a plan finally beginning to shake out, like some kind of movement forward. It's like these sort of reviewing and revising that these two planets have been doing. It's sort of like with this eclipse, it's like I'm seeing the plan forward. I'm beginning to take some action forward. Or at least kind of seeing the beginnings of it, because these planets are still retrograde. It may not be this bursting forward of new beginnings right away, but it's like you can kind of see the semblance of a plan kind of coming together. Given that this eclipse is in Aries, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. By the way, happy astrological new year. I'm actually recording this on the equinox, like the very first day of Aries season. I did not plan that, but that's just kind of how it is. So this eclipse being in Aries, it does signal like pioneering. It does signal marching forward. It can instill a sense of courage and kind of charging into battle. Aries is the warrior and sort of just taking action. So you may feel the sense of like of initiatory kind of feeling of like, let's just do it. Let's go. When we look at an eclipse, this is a solar eclipse, so the sun is going to be partially blocked out. This isn't a total eclipse. That lunar eclipse in Virgo we had was a total eclipse, and I'm still feeling how one myself. So, because the sun can represent like leaders, people in charge, kings, queens, that kind of thing. The sun being blocked out, especially during this Aries eclipse, I'm wondering if this is signaling difficulties or changing of people who are in leadership positions. So you can look at like heads of state, for example, and just kind of see maybe there's going to be just a general sense of difficulties or like a shifting in dynamics for people, who are in charge, whether it's heads of state or whether it's like a boss at your business. I have to mention a quick story. I had a boss like last year, I think, and there was an Aries eclipse. And I believe it was a solar eclipse. And this boss was a Libra. And I remember thinking, kind of hearing rumors that he might get fired. And I was like, I bet he's going to be fired around this Libra, like around this Aries eclipse, because it signaled to me fall of leadership. You bet 2 days after that eclipse happened, I walked into work. There's this big meeting happening and he's nowhere to be found. So I was like, I knew. So anyway, so with this Aries energy, because there is this feeling of leadership and people in leadership positions, it may prompt you to sort of take leadership in your own life, to sort of chart your own course, or understand where you've been giving your power and agency away, because Aries wants to sort of act for itself. It wants to make its own decisions. So you may have a better understanding of maybe how you've been giving your power away and kind of taking the reins back in your own life to some degree. Really, the one aspect I want to mention with the solar eclipse, because there's a lot of minor aspects happening, and aspects I'm talking about, like the relationship between the stars and planets in the sky, kind of giving a more complete picture of this energy. So Mars is the ruler of Aries. So you want to look at what Mars is doing in this eclipse. And Mars, let me just pull up this chart here. Mars is still in Cancer. He's finally moving a little bit, but Mars is still, Mars being in Cancer. Mars is considered fallen in Cancer, meaning it doesn't really. It can struggle a little bit. It may sort of accomplish its aims, or takes, because Mars is a planet of Mars is a planet of fire and action and like willpower. Mars in Cancer sort of goes about things more carefully. It goes about things more unconventionally. But Mars in Cancer ruling this eclipse can maybe signal like this isn't the bursting forth of energy right out of the gate, right? This is maybe taking careful steps, or maybe feeling like, we are taking action, we are moving forward, but it just feels maybe like a little bit doing it maybe slowly or doing it unconventionally. But the one aspect I wanted to mention with this eclipse is Mars will be square, essentially exactly, Chiron, the wounded healer. So Mars is going to be at 22 degrees, 47 minutes of Cancer, wearing Chiron, also at 22 degrees of Cancer. And it's difficult to put Chiron stuff, into words, because Chiron represents, like, in your birth chart where you have Chiron is, I always forget. It's like not quite an asteroid. I think it's a comet, if I remember correctly. Every time I can literally, I have looked this up many times. Every time I talk about Chiron, I'm like, it's not an actual planet. It's not an asteroid. It's like somewhere, I think it's a comet. I can't remember, whatever. So, but nonetheless, it is very important because Chiron describes a core wounding. Like in your own chart, it describes where, like, a wound that maybe you cannot heal from. Calling back to the mythology of Chiron, the centaur, who was a great healer, a great teacher, but he had like a wound he could not heal himself, but he was really good at healing others and teaching others. So every time like a planet is like aspecting Chiron in the sky, and I feel like because it's doing so very meaningfully and very tightly during this eclipse, it's like there's something that hurts about this energy. There's something painful about this eclipse. It's like, learning the truth of something, but it's something that kind of hurts us. Or sometimes I look at it as like, sometimes how you have to like cauterize a wound, or like burn something off like a wound to make it heal. There's something like that. And I wonder if there's going to be something illuminated or shown during this eclipse that is like painful to witness, but is sort of necessary for healing somewhat. So there is something kind of emotional. There is something that like, ouch, kind of hurts during this eclipse. I will say also, really quickly, the first, in October 2023, the beginning of this sort of current iteration of the Israel Gaza conflict and the current genocide that is taking place in Gaza started during this Aries and Libra eclipse cycle. And I wonder if right now, it does feel like we're going to maybe enter some new chapter of that, given that Israel has sort of reinstated bombing Gaza and sort of shattered their ceasefire. So I do wonder if this aspect in this eclipse is linked to something that's going, or some sort of new chapter that's going to be taking place there as well. But I do feel like there's some sort of hurt in the air. I think that there's something that we're healing from, something being shown that we need to heal from during this eclipse. So anyway, so interesting eclipse. Personally, it can be very significant, but I do feel like something in the air. There's something emotional about this energy. So the very next day, March 30th, Neptune is moving into Aries, and it will be in Aries until October 23rd of this year, and then it's going to dip back into Pisces for just a couple months and then go into Aries for good on January 2026. It's going to be so essentially it's going to be in Aries for the next 13 years, minus this little detour when it retrogrades back into Pisces for a little bit. This is a very, very big deal. It's one of the many outer planet shifts that we're having in 2025, really signaling that 2025 is the transition point into a new era for humanity and for Earth. So in general, Neptune kind of represents sort of what we deify. It's like what we like. It's sort of like what is sort of connected to like divinity. Neptune is the planet of spirituality, of oneness. Neptune is it's like represents like what kind of captures our collective imagination. And Neptune really kind of represents like Neptune wants us to like merge with spirit. And so the sign that Neptune is in is sort of like the flavor of like what is capturing our imagination, of how we reach oneness, of how we, connect with spirituality and our imagination. So it was in Pisces from 2012 to now, and modern astrologers, a lot of modern astrologers attribute Neptune as ruling Pisces, and it certainly does have a lot of crossover and overlap with Pisces. I do not think the outer planets that we can't see with our naked eye rule anything, so I don't use it as a ruler of Pisces. Nonetheless, Neptune and Pisces is interesting because from 2012 to now, Pisces we associate with like spirituality and psychics and gurus and all this stuff. And Neptune and Pisces from 2012 to now, there's been a huge astrology boom. Tarot, manifestation becoming very I don't know, like not all the rage, but just like a lot more popular. Like the guru, this sort of transcendent, and we've come up with terms like spiritual bypassing as part of Neptune in Pisces, like how people will sort of use spirituality to kind of bypass their own trauma because they're like trying to ascend to like the fifth dimension or something, And I do believe in that. Like I do believe in, like the different dimensions and stuff. But at the same time, it's like you have to own your own stuff at the same time. And the reason, so Neptune can also represent not only spirituality and merging with spirit, but also illusion, like personal delusion. Only seeing the things that you want to see, like rose-colored glasses. Neptune is a very tricky planet, and like with every planet in astrology, there's going to be a positive, like a shadow side to that energy, because Neptune can also have to do with like let's say a drink tastes great, but it's secretly laced with poison. It's like Neptune can be the things that you don't see that can be bad for you. So Neptune and Pisces was this very kind of, astrology manifestation stuff, right? And so it's going to go into Aries, and this to me is like the spiritual warrior, kind of glorifying fighting and resisting, glory and honor in the fight. There's this really good episode of the Astrology podcast where they're talking about the history of Neptune and Aries, and how there was sort of at that time, I think the last time it was in Pisces is something like, or it was in Aries is something like 1876. I talked about this on a previous video. I can't remember the date now. But it was sort of like, young men being conscripted into the military, and how it was sort of glorified, and you're going to find honor on the battlefield and, really capture this like romantic spirit. And then people realized it was like, oh, people were brutally murdered and killed in war, and war is awful. So there's going to be maybe some return to that, of like glorifying the warriors, essentially. It does maybe kind of think of Luigi Mangione, and how he's really kind of captured the collective imagination of like sort of like, yes, he murdered someone. Murder is wrong, but not that many people are mad about it because they're like the systems have to change. So it's interesting. So I think, kind of resisting and fighting and being number one and self-reliance is going to be very much kind of in the collective energies. And also when it comes to spirituality, it's sort of Neptune and Aries can represent that the answer is within yourself, versus like a teacher telling you, Or that I also feel like in this next 13-year period with Neptune and Aries, new spiritual technologies or spiritual healing technologies and systems are going to emerge, things that we have not seen before, because Aries represents things that are first. It represents new things. So personally, what does that mean for you? Well, and again, this is a long transit. However, with Neptune going into Aries on March 30th, start to take notice over the next days, weeks, months with Neptune being here is because Neptune going to Aries means it's going to go into a new house in your astrology chart. And just kind of noticing maybe how where you might begin to search for inspiration and meaning, right? So again, like for me, for example, Aries is my sixth house. So I might tend to find inspiration and meaning through my work. Or I might try to merge inspiration with my work routines and health routines more. So, because Aries for you is going to be a different arena of life. So you're going to, it's like the arena of, so I cannot talk today. Neptune going into Aries is sort of, Neptune wants you to get closer to source and to spirit and merge with spirit. And the arena of life or the house where Aries is for you is sort of how you are going to do that. The other part of Neptune is kind of where we can feel confused or unclear because Neptune just tends to dissolve. It can be about delusions and illusions. But so you also have to watch that too. It's like where we can feel more confused or we can have like a lack of clarity. Neptune is going to be both of these things at once. So let's go ahead and talk about where we can feel this eclipse, these sort of new beginnings or endings that we're going to have in our lives, as well as Neptune moving into Aries and what that means for your rising sign. So let's get started. So like always, I do horoscopes for the rising sign. It's going to be more accurate to literally what is happening in your life. You can also blend it with your sun or your moon if you would like. But I would start with the rising sign first. Remember that requires an accurate birth time. You can go calculate that at astro-seek.com or astro.com or somewhere on the internet. We'll do it free for you. And also remember that timestamps are below, or you can just click on the chapters on YouTube and it will take you right to your horoscope. So, Aries rising, we're going to start with you. I mean, you are the first sign of zodiac. Happy birthday, Aries, by the way. It's Aries season. So, interesting. Okay. So the solar eclipse is happening in your first house. I mean, this feels like a very personal kind of new era for you. I feel like maybe you might be sort of ready to let go of things from the past, and you really kind of want to think about all the growth that you've had since 2023. Maybe major changes in how you perceive yourself, your identity, maybe even things with your physical body and vitality and how you sort of present yourself to the world. Major changes in your relationships since then as well, changes in your partnerships or your various kind of, contractual agreements, maybe even business partners or who you sort of align yourself with. You are currently still, I think, revising that right now, just like in the last few weeks, because Venus, the ruler of your seventh house of partnership, is retrograde currently as well. And you might also just kind of be rethinking money stuff. But in general, this is a big kind of, I think, sort of surge forward for you. And remember that it's sort of closing, we're closing something out and we're ready to sort of move on to a personal kind of new era. Also keep in mind as well that Neptune is moving into your sign. So over the next, it depends kind of where your actual ascendant degree is, but Neptune moving into your first house of Aries, big deal. That's a really big deal. I feel like there's something about slowly becoming, when a planet moves through your first house, it's sort of like you start to take on the energy of that planet and express it in your daily life. Something about like connecting to like magic in your everyday life and connecting more to your spirituality and feeling it in your everyday life. Also becoming more sensitive, like just becoming more aware of your sensitive side of like the subtle energies that kind of flow through everything. And this also it's like, Aries kind of being like the warrior. And if we think of like, this is kind of where it's like I might suggest, if you're into, if you like to work out, if you like to exercise, maybe something like martial arts. or yoga, or like where we're sort of combining like a spirituality with physical movement. Feels like a very kind of Neptunian practice, especially like the martial arts stuff. It's sort of like, becoming aware of like body, mind, spirit. But there's like this hot kind of fiery kind of expression of that with Neptune going into Aries. But I think, becoming more sensitive, becoming more aware of your dreams over the next 13 years. And I think just becoming more aware of your sensitive side is really kind of what I feel with Aries, with Neptune going into Aries for you. So interesting stuff, but you're definitely beginning and closing. You're closing a chapter of your life of your life out right now, and I also feel like you are probably initiating or feeling some sort of major new beginning start to unfold for you as well. So officially goodbye to Aries eclipses. I remember when I was younger, I was like, I want an eclipse in my sign. You actually don't really, you really don't want eclipses in your sign. They're just kind of disruptive and can bring major life changes. And as a Taurus, life changes are annoying. All right, Taurus rising. This solar eclipse is happening in your 12th house. Again, we've had Aries eclipses in your 12th house since April 2023. These are eclipses near the North Node. So these eclipses are more about beginnings. It's more about increase, more. And perhaps you've been there's been a theme of maybe being drawn inward. 12th house themes have to do with like rest and retreat, themes of isolation, whenever you're kind of like on a hike in nature, that's very 12th house, or, in meditation, that's 12th house, or sometimes 12th house energy is also just being more aware of like subconscious themes and like hidden beliefs and sort of things kind of running underneath the surface that these eclipses maybe are making you aware of, maybe how you might sabotage yourself, or even people who present as allies or friends that may not exactly be allies or friends. And I would say because Neptune is going to be parked in your 12th house, essentially for the next 13 years, even though there is that little break and that little dip in there from October to January. I feel like you really are going to start. I would really pay more attention to your dreams, because Neptune is this planet that is like, hey, the things that the structures and this 3D realm that we thought is real is not actually real. So paying attention to dreams, I think getting more into things like meditation or spiritual healing, journaling, more introspection, and kind of making your private sort of spirituality this very kind of mystical, kind of healing place. But I would say with this 12th house eclipse is there's an energy of, new beginnings and new starts with this eclipse, but there's this feeling of kind of slow and steady, or taking baby steps toward something. So last eclipse here, 12th house eclipses are tricky. And these eclipses are going to be falling into a little bit, less problematic areas for you, hopefully. So Taurus rising, that is your reading. Let's look here. So now we have Gemini rising. Gemini rising. The eclipse for you is falling in the 12th or the 11th house. So again, you've had eclipses here since April 2023. This is the last eclipse in Aries for, I think, like the next 18 years or something like that. So maybe we've had new experiences, beginnings, maybe some endings in the realm of friends, our groups that we belong to, organizations, our colleagues, our social circles, groups that we sort of identify with and are part of. There are maybe some changes happening here. Perhaps that there are, or perhaps, that there are maybe like a friend is having some sort of dramatic event in their life. It doesn't necessarily have to be about you, but it could be, and also because this eclipse is being ruled by Mars and Cancer. Mars and Cancer right now has been in your second house for, really since January. So themes connected to maybe like sometimes Mars just being in your second house for so long, maybe you might feel like you're just kind of burning through money, or you feel like you have to make a lot of money, or there's just there's issues or inflammation or motivation connected to finances and spending. So there's also a theme that kind of ties in spending and money here with this eclipse. But I'm going to say maybe there's opportunities to network or promote yourself, or simply opportunities that come through friends, or just things happening with your social groups connected to this eclipse. And you may want to think back and think maybe how your social groups have changed since April 2023. Also, the 11th house has to do with your goals, wishes, and hopes for the future. So this might kind of this eclipse might simply kind of call into your awareness, like, what do you want? What are you hoping to manifest in the future? What are your goals now? How have they shifted since April? Also, Neptune is going to be parked in your 11th house, essentially for, like the day after the eclipse, essentially for the next 13 years. Neptune being about dreams and spirituality and merging with spirit, something about, being with people that share like an ideology with you, being connected to your friends and colleagues in different organizations may bring about a sense of like connection to spirituality somehow. I'm not sure how those two things go together, but you will feel it in your own life. At the same time, Neptune can also be illusion and delusion. So, kind of maybe I would also say just sort of, Neptune can bring a little bit of fog with it. So because Neptune is that tricky planet of, I would maybe use discernment about who you ally with, friends that you associate with. Like it could bring like really transcendent experiences, but also it could be like, is this person like really good for me? Or is this person really on my side? I'm not sure how I see this person. Could be themes that sort of arise with Neptune going into Aries in your 11th house. Cancer rising. Okay. Cancer rising. Okay. So the solar eclipse is happening in your 10th house. That's career, public and professional reputation, authority figures. A big important energy. And I'm going to say that you've had some beginnings and endings and major changes in the realm of career, your professional goals, how you are seen publicly, your reputation, and also things happening within home and family, real estate, ancestors' roots, property, where you come from, where your home base since April 2023. So this is kind of a culmination of all of that. And I would actually say even like that the full moon in Libra 2 weeks after this can also be a culmination, but this is technically the last eclipse in these signs. There can be maybe some major opportunities or a feeling of some kind of new, like a new start, like we're sort of pushing ahead or we're charging forward. Albeit I'm going to say maybe baby steps, or maybe feeling like things are in flux or there's like a shaky start with something in career. But I do feel something new in career happening for you. Like you've been going through some big changes in these areas since 2023. This eclipse is ruled by Mars in Cancer. So Mars, the planet of, Mars, the planet of action and energy and let's fucking go, has been in your sign. But Mars tends to not be, at its personal best in Cancer. So, essentially you might have just been feeling a little more on edge these past couple months at the very least, or perhaps you've been feeling a little bit more inflammation in your physical body. That's also a very kind of key Mars signature as Mars is going through your first house. And there is like the plus side of maybe feeling a little bit more motivated to stand up for stand up for yourself or defend yourself or advocate for other people. But Mars is being in your sign for so long probably is not the most comfortable energy. This does to me suggest like you're maybe initiating something with this eclipse, or there's some like new beginning energy. But again, it kind of feels like things are in flux a little bit or sort of taking baby steps, and don't feel the need to rush. And feeling emotional about this new beginning is perfectly natural as well. And also just, so Neptune moving into Aries, moving into your 10th house over the next 13 years. So you're going to start to feel this ingress really like the very next day. Something about career for you or being in the public eye, your professional goals, that's going to be connected to your sense of spirituality, your sense of merging with spirit somehow, of your connection to the divine, I think, is going to be linked with career. So it may be that maybe you're going to tie your career endeavors to helping people or to transcending, the physical somehow. It's like, maybe it's like, okay, I might actually get that yoga certification done and like teach some classes or something like that. But also, Neptune can confuse as well. Sometimes, Neptune can leave you with more questions than answers. So, any planet is always a mixed bag, as it kind of brings its energy to a new life area for you. So, every now and then, if you're feeling a little, sometimes Neptune going through your 10th house can mean like, hey, like, what are my goals now? I was so set on a certain path, but I'm not sure. It could play out in multiple ways, but there's definitely a little bit of fog with Neptune, but also this sense of wanting to merge with spirit and commune with the divine. Like, that's going to be tied into career for you. Also, themes of like water and the ocean as well, could be tied into maybe where you are living. If your IC or the lowest point in your chart happens to fall in your fourth house, which is opposite the 10th. I've seen that occasionally too. So, all right, let's go ahead and look at Leo rising. Leo, the solar eclipse for you is in the 9th house. What am I doing? Sometimes I'm just like, rain, let's go. So solar eclipse for you in the 9th house. You've had a lot of eclipses here in the 9th since April 2023. And this is an eclipse along the North Node, so it's more about beginnings, increase, more hunger and desire. Let's fucking go. Let's get moving. The 9th house has to do with travel, spirituality, higher education, higher mind and study, other cultures, as well as like spirituality. I don't know if I said spirituality or not. And also like legal things. I mean, also anything to do with media and publishing. So if you can think of maybe some projects that maybe you've been really kind of obsessed with, or that you felt a lot of drive to work on since April 2023 that kind of fits within those themes. This might be some sort of culmination or completion, or even or also a sense of a new beginning with this eclipse as well, or a feeling of like, let's go, let's get something rolling here. However, because this energy is ruled by Mars in Cancer, things might feel like it's in a state of transition, or the beginning is shaky, or it's like we're sort of taking baby steps. I'm going to say also pay attention to things like dreams. You may want a little extra meditation or time spent alone, as Mars in Cancer falls in your 12th house of like isolation and retreat and rest. So it's like, I feel like with this solar eclipse, there's definitely some opportunities for divine inspiration, getting hits from your intuition and spirit team. This eclipse feels like a good time to sort of commune with spirit, with the divine, because the 9th house where this eclipse is falling does have to do with like, it's considered like the house of God, the house of spirit, so like, and house of divination. So like getting answers from the divine, I think could really come in to play here. You may have been questioning or revising things connected to your education or your beliefs, or things connected to travel and spirituality, because Venus and Mercury are retrograde in the same part of your chart. But I just kind of think, this is time that you may get some sort of aha moments sort of regarding all of this. Neptune is going to be moving into your 9th house as well the very next day. Neptune is about how we merge with the divine, where we find a sense of spirituality, but also can bring some fog and confusion with it. So I think that you're going to be more interested in spirituality, or there's something about, connecting to your mystical side, bringing a sense of really wanting to merge with the divine. And this is going to come through higher education for you, through travel, through, if you're a writer, through writing or whatever your broadcasting and media endeavors are, or if you're involved in like the legal system in some way, maybe you're going to want to like give, like, let's say that you're a lawyer Neptune going into your ninth house, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to offer some like pro bono work or something like that. But it also could just, in this, again, this is a 13-year transit. This is just kind of like a little taste or a preview, but it's going to, I would start to notice with these ninth house themes, how you are wanting to sort of connect more with the divine or bring in a sense of mysticism into your life. Virgo rising. Okay. So there's been a big review, revising process, getting more information connected to eighth house stuff. Eighth house stuff is money. That's like retirement, investments, partners' money, other, grants, loans, debts, um, like mutual aid, any money that we're connected to that's not in the form of like a regular paycheck. There's like a big review process happening here. And that's where the solar eclipse is occurring, is in the eighth house. So you've had big changes in the realm, I think, of finances and other people's finances. And also just like how we're entangled with other people, and also things with inheritances, taxes, really like the eighth house is where we are entangled with others. So this is also like the hidden stuff with intimacy and relationships and sort of like dealing with stored, buried emotional trauma. So you've had a lot of changes with finances here and with all these other topics that I talked about since April 2023. So this eclipse is like a final, like an aha moment. It's like a completion or a new beginning. And getting some clarity, I think. Clarity, I think, can come in around this eclipse. So, and there very well may be a new beginning, like connected to these topics. This eclipse is ruled by Mars in Cancer. So, with this eclipse, there's baby steps where things can feel like they're in transition or we're not taking off at a full run. It's like, okay, I'm kind of hobbling to kind of start, right? It's like there is this new start Aries energy, but at the same time, we're kind of just getting going. And the energy really doesn't pick up until April, by the way. But this eclipse is ruled by Mars in Cancer. Mars has been spending some time in your 11th house. The 11th house has to do with friends, with colleagues, with social groups that you're a part of, your goals and wishes and hopes for the future. So maybe there's something about like, what do I really want? Like, what are my goals coming up here? Or maybe there's something involving a friend or a colleague or social groups that are going to become important with this eclipse. Neptune, that planet of spirituality, merging with spirit, will be moving into your 8th house on March 30th. So, couple things with that. It's kind of hard to know exactly what Neptune's going to do without looking at your chart. Even if I had your chart in front of me, Neptune's still Neptune, so there's a little mystery around it. But for the next 13 years, Neptune is moving into your 8th house. So here's some things that could manifest. Neptune is a very psychic energy. So, and the 8th house is sort of, like other people's energy. So, I feel like you may just feel like more intuitive and connected to gut feelings when Neptune has moved into this part of your chart. At the same time, Neptune can sort of confuse or bring fog to something. So it's like you're really going to want to, I would say, like you really kind of want to keep track of your money. Like, know how much is in your account, how much you're getting from your retirement, your tax, your investments. Keeping an eye on that, because sometimes with Neptune, we could turn a blind eye to something and we're like, oh, it's fine, it's going to be okay. But we really just kind of want to make sure everything is above board. And also, like, this would kind of signify, like, if you're going to lend money to someone over the next 13 years, it's like, know exactly how we're going to get that back, what the terms are, because Neptune can be about rose-colored glasses. So we don't want to be wearing those when Neptune is in our house of money. At the same time, Neptune here could be about like trust and intimacy and learning to let the universe provide for you in some way as well. So Neptune in the 8th house, I think, will be very interesting. And I think like in some way too, it's about like letting go of control, especially for Virgo rising, because Virgo rising kind of needs like organization and control and very practical. But Neptune here is like surrendering to spirit a little bit. And I think 8th house can also be energy healing, like Reiki and things like that. So, like tuning into spirit in these ways, I think, will be helpful, and you might be drawn toward it with Neptune going through your 8th house. Libra rising, this full moon, or excuse me, solar eclipse for you is happening in your 7th house of partnership. Lots of big changes for you since April 2023. And this is sort of like this conclusion. Actually, I'm going to say in 2 weeks, there's also a conclusion with this full moon in your sign. But this is technically the conclusion to this eclipse cycle. We won't have eclipses in Aries and Libra for the next 18 years. So you've been really going through a big growth spurt for like the past 2 years. Maybe releasing things, releasing any toxic energy, or just releasing things that no longer serve you in your life. Maybe you've just been feeling this like personal evolution and like letting go of pieces of your identity as the South Node moved its way through your 1st house of self. And perhaps there's been more collaboration or new beginnings and changes in your partnership. So romantic, business, platonic, all of that. And kind of figuring out like relationship dynamics, I think, has maybe been like a big sort of piece of your journey. Okay, hold on. I need to sip my protein shake. So, yeah. So there also may be a piece that's connected to career for you as well, because Mars has been in your career sector since January. So, there's a good chance that maybe we've been feeling frustrated at work, or we're trying to get ahead. We're feeling really motivated, but also maybe that's going to maybe come with some challenges, or just feeling maybe this Cancer crabby energy connected to career. And again, it could also just be like, I'm really motivated. Mars in Cancer, though, it's more like it's not running at a sprint. It's more of running at like a slow but steady kind of pace. So there may be something with relationships and career for you with this solar eclipse. So maybe feeling a new beginning or some kind of closure or completion with career stuff. So there could be that theme tied in with it. Neptune in Aries, it moves in the very next day. It's going to be here for basically 13 years. Something about merging with the divine and spirituality and mystical kind of energy is going to come to you through your partnerships and relationships. So, in some cases, this could really be like opening your heart to someone, like really allowing yourself to fully surrender in relationships, or finding, God or source or spirit through union with another. It doesn't just have to be romantic love, either. And at the same time, Neptune is all these, big kind of mystical kind of themes, but at the same time, sometimes Neptune can be confusion and fog. So, using discernment in your relationships, in your partnerships. Sometimes Neptune can be about ambiguity. So just kind of noticing how these themes start to maybe emerge this year. Don't be afraid of Neptune. Be like, oh my God, I'm going to be confused about partnership for 13 years. Like, I know I'm going to get that in my comments. And if that's the case, baby, if that's what you take from this, please. It's, but definitely, there's definitely something about merging with spirit and finding source through another, with Neptune moving through your 7th house. Just use some discernment with Neptune moving in. So solar eclipse for Scorpio rising. This is happening in your 6th house. You've had a lot of changes in your work, how you work, your work routines, coworkers, your workplace, how you take care of physical health, your health routines, as well as pets, since April 2023. And since this is a North Node eclipse, this is more of a beginning or like let's go kind of energy. There also could be an ending here as well. It's very possible. Or like an ending with a new beginning, something like that. This eclipse being ruled by Mars in Cancer. Mars is your chart ruler. It's your traditional chart ruler of Scorpio. And Mars is a planet of action and energy. And maybe you've been feeling a little less motivated or a little frustrated, or, like wanting to take a leap, but it's like, I need to take a nap, before I get all these things done, really since like January. And I think you'll start to feel better, Scorpio, mid-April when Mars goes into Leo, and you're really going to be attacking your career then. But since then, Mars has been in your 9th house of beliefs, of spirituality, of travel, publishing, media, higher education. So really been working hard on those topics, even if it feels like maybe we're going at like a snail's pace. So something could be tied to that with this eclipse, or just be aware of these changes that are maybe happening in work may just come a little bit slower. I could have a lot to say about that, but I want to kind of keep this on the brief side because I got to get to a client soon. So Neptune will be moving into your 6th house on the very next day. It'll be there for essentially 13 years, minus that little break it takes in Pisces from October to January. You're going to be really wanting to merge physical health, work routines, and your work with mysticism, spirituality, in the divine somehow. Or that your work has a spiritual connection. Or maybe if you've been like just a hardcore weightlifter and runner, you're like, I really want to incorporate like breath work and yoga into my health routine. Something about bringing this beauty and this mysticism and sense of spirituality to your daily grind and work and health space over the next 13 years is going to be important. Sometimes Neptune can bring some confusion or fog with it too. So it might be like, what work do I want to do? Is this really what I want to be doing? So there can be those themes sort of mixed in with it as well. But definitely notice, after this eclipse for the next couple months, start noticing how you're feeling around work and kind of your attitudes kind of shifting toward that. Sagittarius, solar eclipse is happening in your 5th house. You've had a lot of beginnings, endings, changes, maybe hunger, desire for more. Connected to romance, connected to your creativity and creative projects. And when I say creativity, people are always like, I'm not creative. And I'm like, okay, when I say that, it can be about your creativity. It can also be about like, if you build things for a living, the things that you build, right? That is a 5th house thing. It's like, I built that table. I make furniture. That's a 5th house activity. It can also be about your children or pregnancy and childbirth, or anything having to do with hobbies, recreation, things that give pleasure that you enjoy, and things really connected to the heart as well. So there may be some events or new beginnings or endings coming up. This could be a romantic thing. This could be a hobby that you've been really obsessed with. This could be some sort of art project or something with a child or something with pregnancy and childbirth kind of coming up for you around this eclipse. So again, there could be like a new beginning, a new start, kind of this fresh Aries energy. There also could be an ending. And again, if there is like a new start or whatever it is, this eclipse is ruled by Mars in Cancer. So this suggests a slow start. We're kind of in this sort of transition period where baby steps is kind of like the feeling that I'm kind of getting, or like I'm scared, but I'm going to do it anyway. This eclipse is being ruled by Mars and Cancer in your 8th house of other people's money, investments, taxes, inheritance, debt, the entanglements of intimate relationships, and sort of buried emotional stuff. So there's something kind of, this could be linking, let's say this is like sometimes like a link between like the 5th and 8th houses is like child support. It's like, because 8th house is other people's money, 5th house is children, could be something connected to that. I'm just going to say that there is a link to, there's been maybe some irritation, frustration, or simply more motivation and energy connected to other people's money, investments, debts, inheritance, credit cards, loans, things like that. And also simply like sometimes Mars and going through your 8th house can really just make you aware of like, oh, I have some buried anxiety and trauma I have to like deal with. So it's something maybe about like romantic and like intimate relationships. But there's definitely a link between these two things. I'm not sure how it exactly lines up for you, but I just kind of wanted to point that out in case you're like, what the hell is going on? So with this eclipse, so anyway, that is the last eclipse in Aries that we're going to have for the next 18 years. So it wraps up this cycle between your 5th and 11th houses of romance, creativity, hobbies, recreation, and also friends and social groups, and your goals and wishes and hopes for the future. You've had a lot of changes in those areas. We'll talk more about your 11th house next week when I do those horoscopes. So I do want to mention Neptune. Neptune will be moving into your 5th house beginning the next day. So March 30th. It's going to be there for about 13 years. Neptune is mysticism, spirituality, merging with spirit, the divine, and you're going to be sort of finding an increased sense of spirituality, of connection with higher realms through things like creativity, getting inspired by artistic, creative projects, through matters of the heart, through romance and sexual energies, through connections to children and working with children, or through having your own children, or through pregnancy, or through working with things like that, or simply like the things that bring you joy. Neptune is going to be there. So it's going to sort of, and I think, enhance those things or make it feel like more spiritually potent. At the same time, Neptune moving in, Neptune can be confusion and fog too. So it could be, when it comes to like romance with another person, is like, what is this relationship? Is this a friendship? Is this not? Like, what does this mean? Like, having to use some discernment when it comes to those things. Also, fifth house can simply be partying. Sagittarius rising likes to have a good time, and Neptune here can just sort of enhance, like, oh, this drug feels really, really good, I want to do more. It's like setting limits around those things are gonna be important with Neptune moving in, and I think just kind of setting limits and having realistic expectations around those things is going to be important with Neptune moving into that part of your chart for the next 13 years. Capricorn rising, solar eclipse for you is falling in the 4th house. So okay, you've had a lot of changes, I think, with home and family, where you're living, real estate, property, ancestors, roots, where you come from, private stuff around home. Dealing with a lot of that, a lot of changes, a lot of realizations. This to me is kind of getting, for some of you, I think it's an uprooting. Like it could very well be a move or some change going on with home, or some ending or some transition period connected to your home base. It could also just be something going on with your family or with your parents. This could also, just be drawing you deeper into like ancestor work or connecting with your roots or something like that. You've also had big changes in your career, I'm going to say, since April 2023 as well, because these eclipses have been popping off not only in your 4th house of home, but your 10th house of, visibility, of public reputation, your profession, authority figures, your professional goals. These have all been, I think, in flux and have had these sort of more dramatic kind of changes since April 2023. This one I do think is probably going to be more focused on like the home piece though. So there could be, again, a beginning and ending. I'm going to say also something with relationships could be coming up for you as well, because this eclipse is ruled by Mars in Cancer. Mars has been in your 7th house of partnerships. If there has been more friction in your relationships since January, do not be surprised by that, because Mars is the planet of separation, cutting, and war, right? It's been in your partnership. So, if since January, if things have been on the rocks with you and a partner and you've split or separated, that's not surprising. Or if you just had to address some things to come up, because Mars is not a smooth planet. It tends to exacerbate conflict. Or it could be that there's just like emotional, maybe some like more like emotional conflicts in your partnerships, or simply it also could be that there's just more motivation, energy to be in partnerships also too. It could be that we're sort of motivated to be in partnerships, but because it's Mars, it's a little rocky, I'm going to say. Also, Venus and Mercury have been retrograde in your 4th house of home since like the beginning of, well, since not since the beginning. Okay, whatever. Venus and Mercury have been retrograde in your 4th house of home this month. And so this eclipse could be an aha moment also, like, okay, I know what I'm going to do now. So there's could be something with relationships and with home for you with this eclipse. Mars will finally move out of your 7th house, by the way, in April, like mid-April, like April 13th, I believe. So in case you're like, wow, when is this relationship stuff going to feel less like treacherous or whatever? Mars moving into Leo should help that out a bit. I do want to mention Neptune. Neptune is the planet of spirituality, of merging with spirit. It's going to be moving into your 4th house of home and family the very next day, on March 30th. And it's going to be there for about 13 years. I think that you may be more interested in healing, things connected to family, or you may find divinity or connection to spirit through family, through home, through creating a home base. You might be drawn to living by water or by the ocean, or water could simply become more healing for you, or putting your home base by water could be something with Neptune in the fourth house. It also could be that family dynamics might just, there could be something confusing about it, like needing practical, realistic boundaries with family could also be something that comes in, because Neptune can also be confusion and fog sometimes. So, but anyway, how that manifests for you, it could be everything I said. It could be, again, I don't have your chart in front of me, so it's hard to tell, but I just wanted to give you those kind of themes in case you start to notice something connected to that over the next, several months. Aquarius, hey girl. So Aquarius rising. Solar eclipse for you is happening in your third. So Mercury and Venus have been here. It's giving classic review, revising, things connected to correspondences, your commute, how you get around, your daily routines, your humdrum sort of daily life. That's all under review at this moment. It also could be things connected to siblings, neighbors, local community, where you're living, kind of like your neighborhood. These things could sort of be up for a review at the moment, or relationships with people connected to that could be up for review. So then we have a solar eclipse. And this, by the way, this solar eclipse, you've had eclipses in this part of your chart since 2023, April 2023. So maybe changes with neighborhood, maybe events connected to travel or learning or studying or opening your mind, things connected to communication projects and broadcasting and media, things connected to higher education, spirituality, your beliefs. There's a lot of topics in these third and ninth houses, but those things have been in flux, I think, since April for you. Or just having a lot of kind of events connected to that. This eclipse, I think, brings some kind of aha moment, or, beginning or ending or culmination somehow. If it is a beginning for you, I'm going to say maybe connected to work and health things. How you take care of your body, what you do day to day for work, what your work looks like. Also, things having to do with pets can kind of come in here as well. If there's a new beginning, I'm going to say take it slow, take baby steps, because we're kind of in transition with this eclipse. Neptune, it will be moving into your third house the very next day. Bringing some spirituality and mysticism into your daily rituals, I think, is going to be a major topic for you. Like, this sort of brings in, like, let's light incense and pull a tarot card every day. Let's bring some magic into my day, into my normal routines. This is sort of giving, like, let's connect to my spirit guides through automatic writing. Let's, travel by the ocean or by water. Or let's like kind of plumb the depths of like creativity with my communication in written projects. Either way, it's sort of bringing in like a magic and mysticism into sort of your everyday life with Neptune moving into your third house. Sometimes Neptune can be like confusion regarding, Neptune can be just confusion and fog. So it could be confusion and fog like regarding siblings, with neighborhoods, with maybe where do I want to live? I don't really know where I want to live anymore. Or, I've been studying this thing and I don't really know if I want to study it anymore. So Neptune can kind of bring some fogginess around these topics, but I'm going to say that just connecting to spirituality through everyday life is definitely going to be a big theme for you over the next 13 years as Neptune moves into Aries. So, Pisces. All right, my darlings. Pisces rising. Okay, so we are fresh off that lunar eclipse in your seventh house. That was a big one. So if you release something draining from partnerships or from relationships or just from your life in general, and you're still recovering, hello, I see you. But this brings our attention to your possessions, your stuff, your money, movable assets, and also self-worth kind of stuff. So Mercury and Venus have been retrograde in your second house of money. So money, and all those topics I just literally said. So perhaps we're under some big review, and like we're revising how exactly we make our money, how much we are worth, looking at our bank accounts, looking at spending, that kind of thing. But this is kind of how you make a living and your stuff that is valuable, right? So this is under some kind of review, going backwards process, or revising. The solar eclipse in the second house coming in can describe an opportunity, or it can be like a beginning. It's like I'm starting some new chapter. You've had major changes with your livelihood, with money, with taxes, debts, investments, grants, loans, and intimacy stuff over like since April 2023, because that's where we've had these eclipses. But this eclipse kind of moving in, I think, is like a big aha moment, and it can be a new start. And so if you're wanting to do the thing or source an opportunity, go for it. However, this eclipse being ruled by Mars in Cancer, we might, have a little fear around it, or maybe it's like shaky baby steps, or kind of feeling like we're in sort of in transition. This also could be something linked to creativity, creative projects, children, pregnancy, childbirth, hobbies, and recreation. It's like maybe there's something being linked here with like maybe we're going to make money off creativity, or maybe there's something just involving a child here or something like that. But it's like either way, even if that house topic doesn't resonate for you, whatever new thing that we are starting here with money, or with our worth, or with our skills, just take, don't be afraid to take baby steps essentially with this energy. Okay, so what do I want to say now? So Neptune is going to be moving into Aries. It's going to move into that second house of money the very next day. So it could be that maybe how we make our money is maybe tied to create creativity things. Sometimes Neptune is like related to film and like glamorous sort of things. So there could be opportunities for money through those things, very possibly. It also could be, I would say this is also kind of give yellow light as far as like, make sure you always have a clear eye on what you are spending money on and what your bank accounts look like. This is not the time. Granted, this is a 13-year transit, so remind yourself of the next 13 years to just be swiping your credit card and with like no idea of like what's in your no idea of like what's in your account. Like, I'm just gonna swipe and like hope it's fine. You need to know what's happening with your money. Because Neptune here can be like everything's fine, but low key you're getting yourself into debt. So don't do that, because Neptune can be fog, confusion, and delusion. So there are definitely opportunities to sort of merge your livelihood with what fulfills you, with what brings you closer to the divine, and maybe magically kind of manifesting money as well. But also have 2 feet on planet Earth, and don't be a dumbass with your finances, because that can get you into trouble. And again, that's a long transit, but I would just kind of keep an eye on that, a closer eye than usual. So that is what we have for this video. So thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, remember, if you're wanting kind of like a deeper look into your birth chart, I definitely do readings professionally. Or if you want, to chat with your guides and kind of figure out life stuff, or talk to past or loved ones, and also second medium, you can book with me at darkstaroracle.com. Keep an eye out here on YouTube for other offerings I'm going to be putting out. And I will be starting to do monthly horoscopes as well. My next video will be April astrology for all the signs. So we're going to go through like new moon, full moon, kind of any like major ingresses, because I finally feel ready to tackle that. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you're feeling in the comments. Thanks for being here, and have a great solar eclipse, everybody.